Hey friends, welcome to this class on brownies. What are brownies? Brownies are neither a cake nor a cookie. The top is like a cookie, it's crisp like a cookie, a little crackly, and the center is fudgy and soft, but not spongy. So that's why when I say not spongy, what I'm trying to tell you is not to use the beater when you're doing it. You just need a balloon whisk to mix all your ingredients, because when we use a beater, we put in air, too much of air, and our cake becomes very spongy. But that is not what we are looking at for a brownie. We want it nice and fudgy, dense. So we don't use a beater. So the work becomes even more simpler. Okay. Now, weight measurements and cup measurements both have been given, but I would definitely recommend the weight measurements. जितनी एक्यूरेसी वेट से आती है उतनी कप से नहीं आती है. जो एक कप है विच इज 8 ounces और 240 ml, that holds 240 ml of liquid. Somebody asked me, about the cups. I just want to tell you that in a cup, if you measure maida, it is 120 grams, but if you measure sugar, it's about 200 grams. So the weight and the volume is not the same. So that is why, if you fill the cup and give it a good tap and fill it again there might be a little extra, like 120 grams maida ki jagah 130, 140 tak bhi aa jata hai in a cup. So what I'm trying to say is, please invest in a kitchen weighing scale, because if you are interested in baking, you'll get perfect results only when you do the use the kitchen weighing scale. Okay. Uh, I'm going to do eggless as well as with eggs, the brownies. There's very little difference. Most of the steps are the same. The only difference is in eggless, we are going to use yogurt, which is dahi. And please don't use ghar ki dahi. I would recommend a box like this from the a store-bought yogurt. Now, what do you have to do with the yogurt? If you can see, I have a muslin cloth here and a strainer and an empty bowl. All I do is line my strainer with a muslin cloth and put the yogurt in it just for 10 minutes. I'm not looking at a हम योगर्ट जो आप टिक्के के लिए लेते हैं, जो घंटा घंटा टांग देते हैं. आई एम नॉट लुकिंग एट दैट. आई जस्ट वांट a little slightly thick yogurt, the excess water just draining off. So this has to be done just for 10-15 minutes, not more. And you don't have to bandho it or tie it the way you do it for a tikka. We are not marinating anything in it. We are just throwing away the excess water in it. So we leave this aside. Now, when you're doing the egg wala brownies, all you have to do is substitute this yogurt with 3 eggs, regular sized eggs. So either we use the rest of the ingredients are all the same. The procedure is also the same. So for those who are looking at an egg wali brownie, because I'll do the eggless first, please don't get disinterested in the eggless, because all the tips and tricks are going to be the same. So please be attentive and listen to the eggless brownies also, even if you're going to do an egg brownie. I'm going to do, the eggless first and then the egg one. So please, all of you, whether you take eggs or not, just be attentive, because as I told you, it's going to be very similar. Now, what are the ingredients that we use? We use castor sugar. Now, this is castor sugar. This is also called breakfast sugar. This is also called superfine sugar. I would not recommend powdered sugar. Ghar ki pisi hui chini na le. You get this castor sugar very easily. Buy this and use castor or breakfast. It's one and the same thing. It's just fine sugar. You know, you get that fudgy texture by using this sugar. You don't get the fudgy texture if you use powdered sugar. Secondly, about the chocolate. It's a good idea to use this dark compound chocolate. And the chocolate should never be put in the fridge. Put it in a cool place in summers, you know, maybe an AC room or anywhere where it doesn't really melt so much. Not in the kitchen, definitely, but somewhere which is a cooler place. And don't refrigerate your chocolate. So to start with, we start and I'll tell you about the ingredients as we go along. I'm going to keep this at low heat. I don't want very high heat, so I'm just trying to keep it at low heat. Now to start with, we need unsalted butter. And that also you can see I had taken it out of the fridge about half an hour back so that it's nice and soft. It says 110 grams of butter. I would still recommend please measure it, but in case if you want to take the cup measurements, soften it, fill it to the brim, scrape off the excess. So half a cup le lena plus 2 tablespoons, but don't overfill anything. You know, if your butter is not softened and you try and measure it in the cup, if it's hard butter, you can wait, no problem. But if you're using the cups, it has to be softened, not melted again. It has to be just soft so that when you measure, there are no air gaps or air spaces in it. So we have about half a cup plus 2 tablespoons or 110 grams of softened unsalted butter. I don't want you to use the salted butter. The brownies become too salty, and unsalted butter is very easily available. Again, one more thing. Sorry? Yes, they are fudgy brownies. Brownies are supposed to be fudgy all the time. Okay. Now, one more thing. आप घर का मक्खन नहीं इस्तेमाल करेंगे. घर के मक्खन में बहुत पानी होता है because you don't have machines to remove that excess water and your brownies are going to be very sticky. चिपचिपी सी हो जाएंगी. So मक्खन आप बाजार का ही लेंगे. You can buy it from a dairy if you like from the market, but don't use homemade white butter. So here we start with butter. 110 grams of softened butter on low heat. Let it just melt partially. You don't have to melt it completely. Now in this, I'm going to add chocolate, 170 grams. I've not given this in cups because, you know, if you give it in cups, again, how finely you've chopped it, how thickly you've chopped it, cup measurements will not work. So अंदाजे से अगर आपके पास weighing scale नहीं है तो आप अंदाजे से अगर 500 ग्राम का बार है तो उस हिसाब से 170 ग्राम ले लें. मक्खन पिघल गया है और अब मैं इसमें डाल रही हूँ 170 grams of compound chocolate. Heat is low. I've not, you know, high heat will seize your chocolate. वो एकदम पत्थर की तरह हो जाएगी. Please see that your heat is low and your pan is heavy. Don't take a very thin bottomed pan. Your pan has to be heavy. And when it is kind of half melted, पूरी मेल्ट ना भी हो, थोड़े लम्स पड़े हों, तो आप इसे उतार सकते हैं. थोड़ा सा और कर लेती हूँ. मैंने आंच बहुत कम रखी हुई है और मेरा बर्तन बहुत भारी है. See, it becomes a sauce like this, but there are still lumps in it. Keep stirring it. When you stir it, see, excess heat is the enemy of chocolate. So if you don't have to give too much heat. So keep the temperature low of your gas or your induction. Secondly, if you keep stirring it, you are lowering the temperature. Bas, I'll just remove it from fire now. And I'm going to stir it till it becomes really smooth. Now, this is the chocolate. I wanted to show you how to cut the chocolate also. I'll just show you. Let me finish with this. I can see it's smooth. I can't see any lumps. Now is the time to add the sugar. Sugar should be added when it's slightly warm to melt the sugar. You don't have to cool it, just stir it well so that it becomes homogeneous and smooth. Now I'm adding 300 grams of castor sugar. Now that would be 1.5 cups plus 2 tablespoons. Again, if you pack your cup very well, it just might be 1.5 cups. As I told you, sometimes 200 grams of castor sugar is a cup. It depends. If if you fill your cup and you do this, वो नीचे चले जाता और 2 चम्मच और आ जाते. So that's why again and again I'm repeating, please do invest in a good kitchen weighing scale and use that. Now for baking, you need to have an oven. Even a microwave with a convection mode will work, but see, only on the microwave mode it won't work. I'm going to use my microwave for one, which has a convection mode. Convection mode means वो temperature दिखाता है. That means वो आपका baking करता है. अगर आपका ये बर्तन छोटा है और चीनी नहीं मिल रही है, तो इसे किसी बड़े बोल में निकालकर और चीनी मिला लीजिए. मैं सेकंड वाला ऐसे ही करूंगी, छोटा बर्तन लूंगी और आपको दिखाऊंगी कि अगर, क्योंकि हो सकता है आपके पास भारी बर्तन ना हो. और एक चीज और, व्हेन यू आर डूइंग एनी मीठा, किचन में प्याज साथ में नहीं कटना चाहिए और आपका कोई कढ़ाई साथ में प्याज भुनती हुई नहीं होनी चाहिए. You know, fat absorbs, the butter absorbs flavors very easily. तो उसमें फिर प्याज की स्मेल आ जाती. तो लहसुन प्याज का काम ना हो रहा हो when you are doing your melting your chocolate and butter. Okay, we are done with this. Okay, now I have to add yogurt to it. If I feel it, it's still warm. गरम में तो दही नहीं डाल सकते ना, आप गरम में अंडे डाल सकते हो. तो हम थोड़ा सा इंतजार करेंगे कि ये ठंडा हो जाए. उतनी देर मैं आपको दूसरा काम बताती हूँ. 5 मिनट इसको हम छोड़ देते हैं. I'll leave it aside and I'll show you how to cut the chocolate. Now, when you're cutting the chocolate, always cut from a corner. And फ्रिज में तो रखनी नहीं है आपने. Take a big knife and your chocolate is at room temperature. Don't cut like this. Cut from a corner with a big knife and go like this. ये ऐसे कट गई. This is how you cut your chocolate. I'm very tempted to add this chocolate to that, but I should not, because as I told you, exact measurements in baking are very important. थोड़ा सा ये ठंडा हो गया है, 2-4 मिनट तो हो गए हैं इसको. So let's proceed. Now the next step is taking a bowl and let's see how much water has come out of this yogurt. If you can see, it's quite a bit, maybe 1/4 of a cup. Again, it will depend on your yogurt. So 1/4 cup of, कई बार लास्ट टाइम तो 2 चम्मच ही निकला था. तो थोड़ा जो भी निकलता है आपका वो आप निकाल लो. और अब इस दही को इसमें डाल देते हैं. एंड इस दही को हम थोड़ा विस्क कर लेते हैं. बहुत ज्यादा नहीं फेंटना है दही को. यू हैव टू जस्ट विस्क इट till it becomes a little smooth. It's no longer lumpy. I can't see any lumps in it. Okay. Now let me feel this. ठीक है. मतलब it's very tolerable. कोई इतना गरम नहीं है. Now I'm going to add this. This is butter and chocolate melted. Then after melting it, I have mixed in the castor sugar. So it has three things. Okay. Another thing which we need to add is vanilla essence. कभी भी डाल दो. 2 teaspoons of vanilla essence. और अब इसको हमने मिक्स कर लिया अच्छी तरह. It becomes a nice sauce. Now all the liquid is there. Now the solid ingredients. We have a little baking powder, 1 teaspoon of baking powder. We have 120 grams of Maida, which is again a cup, but still I would suggest use a weighing scale, and 4 tablespoons or 20 grams of cocoa powder. You know, 1 cup of cocoa powder is only 80 grams, whereas 1 cup of Maida is 120 grams. 1 cup of castor sugar is 200 grams. See how it varies? So this is it. Now I'm going to sift all this in this. Here goes in my 120 grams of Maida. A teaspoon of baking powder. Please use a measuring teaspoon. Level the teaspoon with a knife or with your fingers. And 4 tablespoons or 20 grams of cocoa powder. We've used chocolate as well as cocoa powder for a nice intense flavor of the brownies. Now we sift all this. Now I'm going to remove this. I don't need this. I'm going to use a spatula now. Just sift this. If your bowl, if you can't do this, do it separately on a plate and then add it. But I like to, work fast. So this is kind of making it work fast. If there are any lumps, just destroy them and make it smooth. Now I have my spatula and I'm going to give it a quick mix. Now, this is a cut and fold method, which is preferred, but if you can't do it, you can just mix it like this also. But what is cut and fold, you should know. You're doing a baking class, so you must understand the basics of baking. This is cut, fold, upar se niche, and cut. Give a rotation to your bowl, cut, fold, cut, fold. This is how you do it. Now, suppose you want to add walnuts to your brownie. You can add it at this time. See the mixture? It's a soft dropping consistency. Like it doesn't pour, it drops, but soft. Okay. Now, I have these walnuts and I have a little Maida with me. Whenever you want to add walnuts, it's always a good idea to add a little Maida to it. Why? Because the walnuts or any fruit, whether it is almonds, not in brownies, anything, if you want to add fruits, always mix a little Maida to it and then add it to your batter.
Can we use flax egg instead of curd?
Flax?
Egg.
See, baking is not something which, it's not like a sabzi कि अगर ठीक नहीं बना बाद में गरम मसाला डाल दिया, नमक डाल दिया, मिर्ची डाल दिया. Baking has very fixed recipes. So if you use flax powder or flax eggs, what they call, the other things, the proportions of the other things will vary. You can't use the same amount of baking powder. You can't use the same amount of butter. So please stick to one recipe instead of just mixing too many recipes.
How much dahi did you use?
I used 250 grams of दही फ्रॉम अ बॉक्स ऑफ 400 ग्राम्स. ये 400 ग्राम का डब्बा आता है, इसमें से मैंने 250 ग्राम दिया था और वो अबाउट रह जाता है अबाउट 225 के करीब, टू एनीवेयर फ्रॉम 200 टू 225 रह जाता है. वो पानी जितना एक्सेस होता है वो निकल जाता है. डिपेंड करता है आपकी दही में कितना पानी है. नाउ यू डोंट हैव टू ओवर मिक्स इट. Just see that you can't see any white streaks of maida. I can't see any. So this is kind of done. Now, how do you prepare your tin? You take a baking tin. Brownies are square, so we've taken a square tin. All you have to do is just grease your tin nicely with oil on the sides and the base. And what you need to do is put one paper like this and put one paper. Have you noticed that the paper is cut exactly to the size of this? So जब आप बाहर से नापते हो ना पेपर को, थोड़ा सा छोटा रखना 19 पीस, बिकॉज अंदर का छोटा होता है, अदरवाइज वो साइड्स मुड़ जाती है. Just about 1/4 of an inch less than the outside width. One is like this, but they are both overhanging. Why? Because we need to pull out our brownies like this. I to take help of my, I take somebody's help, and एक साइड से मैं पकड़ती हूँ, एक साइड से दूसरा कोई पकड़ता है, तो बड़े आसानी से निकल जाती है. Because brownies only firm up after they cool completely, maybe in the freezer for 10-15 minutes. तो कई बार जब वो ठंडी भी हो जाती हैं तो निकालने में टूट जाती है. So if you want to cut them into neat pieces, it's a good idea to put the parchment or the butter paper. You get this butter paper rolls like this. You can get them the way you have your foil and all. You get these like this. Do invest in them because brownie में बहुत fudgy होती है तो बहुत चिपक जाती है. So don't do just by dusting and all. तेल लगाकर रखने से नहीं होगा. You need a parchment paper. If you don't have a parchment paper, use an A4 size of sheet and brush it with butter nicely and use that if you like. But again, parchment paper is recommended. Okay. Now this thing is also done. And let me tell you how to now this batter. Now, whether this is an eggless batter or an egg wala batter, let's do Oreo brownies. Now, for the egg walas, think this is an egg wala batter. For the eggless, of course, they know it's an eggless. I'm going to use Oreo brownies. So I'm going to do Oreo brownies wala. I'm going to put half the batter, not the whole thing. And see, it's a little thick. I'll need to spread it. Spread it till the corners. It doesn't go to the corner by itself because it's thick. You need to use a spatula and spread it to the corners. And level it also with the help of the spatula. Now I still have half the batter remaining in this. See, half is gone in. And I have these Oreos, buy the ones with the vanilla inside. It looks better. Oh, ये तो chocolate वाले आ गए. Let me see if I have the vanilla. These are the vanilla ones. I'll put these on top. These are chocolate ones. Okay. Just layer your half the batter with the Oreos without opening them. Just leave them like this. If you don't like Oreo, you can use, what would you like? Maybe some oat cookies would be good. We're going to teach you many kinds of brownies. So if you don't want the Oreo ones, you can do some other ones. Okay. Now I have layered it with this and I'm going to put the remaining batter on it. See the consistency. It's a, you know, when you call it a soft dropping, when I hold it and it drops. And when it isn't a soft dropping, when I have to do this to make it drop, then it's a dropping consistency. But soft will fall on its own when I hold it high. So this is a soft dropping consistency. You must have these mixing bowls, you must have these spatulas, the weighing scale. All these things make your recipes more perfect and they make it more simpler, of course. Here we go. Just take out everything, whatever is there, sticking to the spatula. And now we are going to spread this on the Oreos. Take it to the corners, level it. Now, one step which is very important here, whether it's an eggless or an egg brownie, once you put all the batter in the tin, this is very important. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Give it a few taps because that removes all the air bubbles that are inside. Okay? Now, let's divide this into two. Now, suppose it was only Oreo, I would put Oreo in all this.
Cocoa powder, darker or lighter, one like Hershey's and light cocoa and bakery and lighter.
If it is, you know, if you like your brownies a little bitter, you can go for the Hershey's dark. Otherwise, you can go for the Cadbury's also. They are both fine. See, I like the white on top, so I'm putting this. Opening it up and putting this. Bread, अंदर तो हमने साबुत लगाए थे, but on top we can have broken pieces. I'm doing on half the brownie. The other half, let's put walnuts. Now, how do you put the walnuts? Again, I've mixed a little maida in it. और ये मैदे से मैंने इसको झाड़ दिया अच्छी तरह से, पर बहुत मैदे की जरूरत नहीं है. उसके बाद जो एक्सेस मैदा है, मैं इसको निकाल लेती हूँ. I don't want the excess मैदा. बस थोड़ा सा कोट हो गया ये. ऊपर मुझे बहुत मैदा नहीं चाहिए. And let me put the walnuts here. अब जो भी चीज आपने ऊपर लगाई है उसको आप थोड़ा सा हाथ से दबा दो, हल्का सा. और एक बार बस. Now our brownies are ready to go in the oven. I'm going to, I have preheated my oven on 180 and I'm going to put them in the microwave on the convection mode at 180 for about 30 minutes. Now, what happens is, this is a 7-inch tin. You know, your palm is about 7 inches. So when you want to check, it's about, normally a lady's hand is about, palm is about 7 inches. So this is 7 inches and the other one that I have is 8 inches. The recipe calls for an 8-inch tin and I put it in a 7-inch tin. So the brownie size is going to be a little higher. So when your cake height becomes more, you need to give it a little extra time. अगर ज़्यादा सब्जी पकाते हो तो 5 मिनट ज़्यादा लगते हैं. कम सब्जी होती है तो जल्दी गल जाती है. तो इसी तरह अगर ये मैं 9x9 में डालती तो हो सकता है 25 मिनट में हो जाता. 8x8 में डालती तो 30 मिनट्स में हो रहा है. बट ये 7x7 में डाल रही हूँ और ब्राउनी की हाइट थोड़ी सी मेरी ज्यादा है, तो ब्राउनी इतनी ऊंची की जरूरत नहीं है. बट आई वांटेड टू टेल यू बिकॉज घर में बेकिंग टिन सबके अलग अलग होते हैं. तो मैं इसको 35 मिनट्स के लिए सेट कर रही हूँ. और वेदर यू यूज अ माइक्रोवेव ओवन on the convection mode or you use an OTG with both the rods on, please, with both the rods on and in the center rack, maybe so that, you know, the brownie is not very close to the coil, upper coil. So then again 30 minutes. So I think कि मैंने preheat में ही रख दिया था. अभी ये गरम तो पहले किया था but it's still preheating. Now it's ready. See, it's giving a beep, so it's preheating. I'll set it now. अब मैं 30 minutes 32 कर देती हूँ अंदाजे से. Now we are done with the egg brownie, in which we've taught you how to do the Oreo brownie and the walnut brownie, a plain walnut brownie.
What's the reason for mixing flour and water?
See, I mixed flour in the walnuts because if you add any fruits, whether you're doing muffins or you're doing cakes, if you want to add any dry fruits or any nuts, they sink to the bottom. The flour makes it lighter and makes it stay. ऊपर रहने देता है, वो बिल्कुल नीचे जाते नहीं है, बैठते नहीं है, इसलिए आप उसमें थोड़ा सा मैदा मिला लेते हो. Okay. Now the egg one, the same procedure. Again, temperature has to be low, so I'm lowering my temperature. 110 grams of unsalted butter at room temperature, softened, goes into the pan. 170 grams of dark chocolate, chopped, but not now. Let the butter melt a little, partially melt. And then I'll add this chocolate to it. I've used 3 regular size eggs. कोई बड़े नहीं, कोई छोटे नहीं, preferably at room temperature. Now when you add the eggs, you should add them one at a time. That is important. बस बटर थोड़ा सा पिघल गया और in goes the dark compound chocolate, which is at room temperature. Never keep your chocolate in the fridge. Okay. Before it melts completely. Now let this become a sauce consistency. Now see, I've taken a smaller bartan for this because I'll transfer it to this bowl. हिलाते रहो और छोड़ना नहीं है आपने. अब ये जो मैं बना रही हूँ, अच्छा, if you missed any of my videos are available on cookflix.in, and my videos are available on cookflix.in. And if you're not familiar with my masalas, I would just like to show you my masalas, though we are not using any masala today, but just till my sauce gets done. This is my red chili powder. This is Nita Mehta's dhania powder. Dhania powder gives that texture to the curries and the sabzis. We have a nice garam masala, Nita Mehta garam masala. And we also have some spice blends like a dal makhani masala. I was thinking of teaching you all a proper dal makhani very soon in one of my classes. Then for the chicken lovers to add more taste to their chicken curries and the chicken dishes, we have Nita Mehta chicken masala. And we also have a pav bhaji masala and so many more. Do look up nitamehta.com for these masalas and for other things like castor sugar or chocolate chips or anything which you can't, if you want to buy from our site, you can always, so इसको उतार देते हैं. अब ये थोड़ा सा इसमें कसर है तो आप इसको ठंडा करते हैं, थोड़ा सा ठंडा नहीं, इसको स्मूथ कर देते हैं. Now I was telling you, if you want to buy any ingredients, you can look up our site nitamehta.com. All food products, we give you the best brands of the food products. अब इसमें चीनी मिलाना तो बड़ा मुश्किल है क्योंकि बड़ा छोटा सा बर्तन है. मैंने इसमें अपनी कैस्टर शुगर नाप के रखी हुई है, 300 ग्राम है, 300 ग्राम. और अब मैं क्या करूंगी? There is a question if they can use chocolate curvature instead of chocolate compound. First of all, chocolate curvature is a very fine chocolate, and when you bake, the finest, पता नहीं चलता आपको fineness का. Chocolate curvature is usually done for truffle icings and all, with cream if you want to do, because baking के लिए और उसको ना curvature को temper बहुत अच्छी तरह करना पड़ता है. उसको ठंडा करना पड़ता है, फिर उसको खूब टेम्पर करना पड़ता है. सो फॉर बेकिंग chocolate, curvature chocolate is not a very good choice. It's more expensive. It's difficult to handle. It can't take heat at all. Then it doesn't even add any extra flavor to the brownie. So why use curvature? Curvature is used for, at least it's 3-4 times more expensive, and is used for icings and all on the cake. So here compound works very well. Compound is very, all right, if you want to use that, then you can use curvature if you can't find it. But just, cool it properly. Don't, curvature is more sensitive to heat. So warm the butter, and it melts more easily. So just warm the butter and remove it from fire and add the curvature chocolate. You don't need to cook the curvature on the fire at all. Okay, now I'm adding the sugar, castor sugar, to my chocolate and butter mixture, and in goes the essence also. Now to this we have to add the eggs, but we don't want to scramble the eggs, so this has to be दही तो हमने फिर भी थोड़ी सी गर्म में डाल दी, पर अंडा तो बिल्कुल पक जाएगा. तो बिल्कुल आपने देखना है कि ये सच में ठंडा हो जाए, तो उसे ऐसे कर करके अच्छी तरह से ठंडा कर लेते हैं. जब तक ये ठंडा कर रहे हैं, my help is doing it for me. She's just rotating it so that it just cools down, and I'm going to feel it if it's the right temperature before I break in the eggs. Eggs should be added one at a time. Secondly, जैसे उसमें walnuts हमने ऊपर से डाले थे, अंदर थोड़े से मिलाए थे, तो ये मैं इसमें चॉकलेट चिप्स मिलाऊंगी थोड़े से. और वही चीजें हैं, मैदा और बेकिंग पाउडर और कोको पाउडर, ये तीनों चीजों को हमने एक साथ छानना है. तो आप देख रहे हो जो मेथड है वो ऑलमोस्ट सिमिलर है, कोई ज्यादा फर्क नहीं है. देखा, हो गया ठंडा थोड़ा. आई कैन फील इट्स वेरी हॉट येट. आई कांट टच इट ऑल्सो, इट्स सो हॉट. तो इसको थोड़ी देर हमें छोड़ना पड़ेगा. उतनी देर हम करते हैं. अब उसके ऊपर तो हमने लास्ट के ऊपर तो हमने ओरियो डाल दिया था. अब इसके ऊपर हम डालते हैं चीज केक ब्राउनी. हम इसको जो एग वाली है उसको चीज केक ब्राउनी बनाएंगे. तो अगर करना कुछ नहीं है, आपके पास एगलेस बैटर है या एग वाला बैटर है, जो भी है, चीज केक ब्राउनी दोनों में बन जाएगी, दोनों का सेम तरीका. नाउ हाउ डू वी डू द चीज केक ब्राउनी? लेट मी शो यू दैट. I have cream cheese here and I have castor sugar here. So I'm going to mix the cream cheese and the castor sugar. 100 grams of castor sugar to 3 tablespoons of cream cheese. और इसमें मैं डालूंगी थोड़ा सा वनीला एसेंस. अब फर्ज करो आपके पास क्रीम चीज नहीं है, वैसे तो खरीद लेनी चाहिए, होनी चाहिए, पर अगर क्रीम चीज नहीं है तो क्रीम चीज होता क्या है? क्रीम चीज, क्रीम एंड चीज. तो हमारी देसी चीज क्या है? पनीर. तो आप पनीर और क्रीम ले सकते हो, कुकिंग क्रीम. तो आप अगर 100 ग्राम आपको क्रीम चीज चाहिए, तो ऑल यू हैव टू डू इज दैट you take 75 grams of cream, put it in a small chutney grinder with your 2 tablespoons of cream. So 75 grams of paneer and 2 tablespoons of cream, which would be 25 to 30 grams, और उसको मिक्सी में चला लो, तो आपका वो क्रीम चीज जैसा मिक्सचर बन जाएगा. फिर उसमें चीनी मिला देना, कैस्टर शुगर, और आपकी क्रीम चीज. इट वुड नॉट बी अ परफेक्ट क्रीम चीज बट अ substitute just in case. Okay, we have this cream cheese also ready. तो कितनी आसान है ये चीज केक टॉपिंग. 100 grams cream cheese, you get a tin for about 150 grams का आता है. उसमें से आप 100 ग्राम का हिसाब कर लेना, जितना भी आपका, again, as I told you, if I give you the cup measurements and the spoon measurements, it would be, maybe I would say about half a cup or so, or because ये मैंने थोड़ा लिया है क्योंकि मैं आधे में डाल रही हूँ, तो आधे कप के करीब आप ले सकते हो. और आप जो पैकिंग लोगे उसी में से आप छोटी पैकिंग 150 ग्राम्स की आती है, तो 1/3 छोड़ देना, तो 100 ग्राम्स हो जाएगा आपका. No, cream for this, yes, cream cheese can be room temperature or from the fridge. It won't matter. It's not cream cheese, you know, is not very hard. It whips up very easily. It's not very hard.
Which unsalted butter?
I've used Amul unsalted butter. Somebody's asked me how much sugar in the cream cheese. So let me just taste and tell you. It's pretty sweet. So अपने हिसाब से मीठा देख लेना. उतनी लगेगी चीनी. अब देखते हैं. अब ठीक है ये. अब we can add the eggs now. Okay. Now 1 egg at a time. It's always better to break the egg in a separate bowl and then add, because sometimes if the egg is खराब है तो आपका सारा मिक्सचर खराब हो जाता है. बट अभी हम डाल देते हैं, जरा जल्दी में है. और खोल के दिख ही जाता है. ना 2 डाल दिए मैंने, 1 डालना चाहिए था. चलो अब 2 मिक्स कर लेते हैं. They are not getting scrambled. That means the mixture is fine. It's not hot. आपका white पकने लग जाता है. And the last egg goes in. Okay. This is what it looks like without the maida mixture. Only the liquids. This is a pouring consistency. We are looking at a soft dropping consistency. जब ये धार सी बने तो pouring consistency होती है. देखिए हमने कहीं भी बीटर नहीं लिया. इसको एक्चुअली थोड़ा अगर आप विस्क से कर दोगे तो अच्छा रहता है. तो थोड़ा सा विस्क से कर देते हैं. थोड़े एग्स अच्छे से मिल जाते हैं. थोड़ा सा जैसे हमने उसमें किया था दही को, उसी तरह से विस्क से. सो दिस इज डन. Just a couple of whisks. Okay. Now we are going to sift our maida and our cocoa powder and our baking powder. In goes maida, which is 120 grams and about a cup. We have a teaspoon absolutely leveled of baking powder and 20 grams or about 4 tablespoons of cocoa powder. We can see these lumps. Just remove them. बस थोड़े से जो रह जाते हैं उनको छोड़ देते हैं. Okay. Now I'm going to use the cut and fold method, and when I'm doing the cut and fold, I need the spatula. This is cut, fold. Fold is downward, upward, cut. Downward, upward, cut. Rotate. Give a quick rotation to your bowl. A quick turn, just a little bit of turn, not a complete round, but just thoda thoda hilate raho. And as I told you, you don't need to over mix it. थोड़ा whisk कर चुके हैं हम. बस जो ये streaks है मैदे की, ये जो streaks नजर आ रही है मैदे की, कोको मैदे की, ये नहीं आनी चाहिए. अच्छी तरह से मिल जाना चाहिए. ओके. अब ये मेरे को ठीक लग रहा है. इसकी कंसिस्टेंसी उससे थोड़ी सी पतली आई है because of the eggs. उसमें हमने दही का पानी निकाल दिया ना, तो थोड़ा गाढ़ा था। तो दिस इज अ pouring एंड अ ड्रॉपिंग। देखो थोड़ा ड्रॉप करता है, पूरा pour नहीं करता है, in between. It will again depend on how big your eggs are also. Okay. Now, if you want to add chocolate chips, you get these chocolate chips. You can add the milk ones. इसमें मैदा नहीं मिलाना, इसको ऐसे ही डाल देना है। तो चॉकलेट चिप ब्राउनी के लिए आपने चॉकलेट चिप्स मिला दिया। चलिए, अब इसका टिन मैंने तैयार करके रखा है, क्योंकि मैंने आपको समझा दिया है कि टिन कैसे करना है। तो मैंने इसको ग्रीस भी कर दिया और पेपर से लाइन भी कर दिया। अब इसके बीच में मुझे कुछ नहीं डालना है, तो मैं इसको पूरा डाल दूंगी इसके अंदर। पहले तो मैंने आधा आधा किया था। सपोज दिस इज एन एग वाला मिक्सचर, बट फॉर द एगलेस पीपल जस्ट थिंक दिस इज एन एगलेस बैटर टू विच यू एडेड चॉकलेट चिप्स। एंड अब क्या करना है, ये तो थोड़ा पतला था तो साइडों में अपने आप चला गया, लेवल भी हो गया काइंड ऑफ। तो बस हो गया ये 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10। गिव इट गुड, अच्छी तरह से कैप कर दिया मैंने इसको। अब मैं आधे में चीज केक बनाती हूँ और आधे में चॉकलेट चिप। अगर आपने चॉकलेट चिप ब्राउनी बनानी है तो बीच में भी चॉकलेट चिप मिलाना है और ऊपर भी आधे में मैं डाल देती हूँ। जैसे उसमें ओरियो डाला था, इसमें चॉकलेट चिप डाल रही हूँ। With the help of 2 spoons, just put blobs. We are done with this, and all you have to do is just swirl it a little. So we have our cheesecake brownie also ready. This will now go in the oven at 180 for 30 minutes. My oven is preheated. I put an alarm for 30 minutes. Now when the brownie is done, let's see how much time is left. 12 minutes still to go. When the brownie is done, उसके बाद उसके ऊपर आप फज आइसिंग या सॉल्टेड कैरमल करते हैं। तो ये देखिए मैंने बना के रखी है, बिकॉज अगर मेरी बन भी जाए ब्राउनी तो मैं उसके ऊपर आइसिंग या फज आइसिंग या सॉल्टेड कैरमल नहीं कर सकती हूँ। बिकॉज क्या होगा, इफ आई डू दैट देन वो गरम गरम पे तो कर ही नहीं सकते, इट हैज टू कूल डाउन। Now let me show you this brownie. See, if you see the top, my hands are dirty. If you see the top, it's a crackling top, like a cookie top. Dikh raha hai close up? And it's a fudgy, moist inside. So this is what it is. Now, this is a cheesecake wala. ऊपर ये white दिख रहा है इसके, और इस पे ओरियो भी मैंने लगा दिए थे। तो ये ओरियो भी दिख रहे हैं और ये चीज केक वाले भी दिख रहे हैं। तो ये प्लेन है, ये चीज केक और ओरियो वाले हैं। ये जैसे थोड़ा सा चीज केक एंड ओरियो वाले। ओके, हम इनके ऊपर फिर आइसिंग करेंगे, अभी फज आइसिंग करेंगे और हम दूसरी आइसिंग करेंगे। ओके, नाउ लेट्स डू द सॉल्टेड कैरमल। नाउ कैरमल सॉस चाहे आपने ब्राउनी के लिए बनानी हो या आपने किसी और चीज के लिए बनानी हो, फॉर एनी डिजर्ट, इट इज अ वेरी ट्रिकी सॉस एंड इट इज अ लिटिल डेंजरस ऑल्सो। सो यू मस्ट यूज अ बिग पैन, यू नो, बड़े पैन में बनाना चाहिए। लाइक आई हैव दीज 2 पैन्स। तो कैरमल जब बनाओ तो थोड़ा भारी बर्तन और बड़ा बर्तन होना चाहिए। तो ये तो हो गया बर्तन का, पर उससे पहले जब चीनी को आप कैरमलाइज कर लो तो उसके अंदर जब आप पानी डालो तो वो ठंडा नहीं होना चाहिए। पानी हैज टू बी हॉट। अगर ठंडा डालोगे तो आपने देखा होगा कभी कभी व्हेन यू मेक कैरमल यू गेट दोस लम्प्स। So how do you avoid those lumps? By putting hot water. So here I have 1/3 cup of water with me, which I'm going to boil. And to the water, I'm going to add butter. Now I'm doing a salted caramel. Now a salted caramel is you use the salted butter. So I'm going to use salted butter. Now this is 2 tablespoons of butter. My water should come to a boil and I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of salted butter to it. Again, preferably softened. My water is already boiling. 1/3 cup थोड़ा सा ही पानी था. अब इसमें मैंने ये मक्खन डाल दिया. अब बस मक्खन को पिघला लेना है. ये मक्खन पिघल गया. अब मैंने ये देखिए ये पिघल गया मक्खन और पानी और खूब अच्छा गरम है. मुझे गरम ही चाहिए तो मैंने ढक्कन रेडी रखा है so that it keeps it warm. Now I'm going to caramelize my sugar. As I told you, it has to be a big bartan and I'm going to use a wooden spoon to caramelize. I'm not going to use a rubber spatula. Now I take half a cup of castor sugar again. करने को तो आप regular sugar से भी कर सकते हो, पर कई बार when you use the regular sugar and it doesn't have such fine grains, then what happens is, you know, it just burns without melting. We want it to melt. So this, अगर ये छोटी grains होते हैं, they are very fine, they melt very easily. So what I need to do is take a big flat pan and spread your sugar in a single layer in it. Castor sugar preferably. Okay. हाथ में स्पैचुला की जगह आपका लकड़ी का चम्मच होना चाहिए, वो ज्यादा अच्छा रहता है. और इसके अंदर अब मैं डालूंगी 3 चम्मच Milkmaid. See, if you say you want to use just 3 tablespoons of Milkmaid, your Milkmaid stays very well, it's sugar, and it stays very well like this in the freezer. It doesn't even freeze. Gaढ़ा भी नहीं होता, जमता भी नहीं है. You can just leave it in the freezer covered with a foil like this for 2, 3, 4 months, nothing happens. And use the amount you want. So I have this in the freezer and I've taken out 3 tablespoons. So I have this here. Now let's see what my sugar is doing. I can't see that it started turning golden. थोड़ा तेज कर देती हूँ. इसको छेड़ना नहीं है ज़्यादा. Don't touch it. Just leave it there till you see that it has started melting. And if the sugar is very, it's not fine, it's very coarse, and it has big thick grains, then it won't melt at all and it will just turn brown. You want it to melt. And if that happens, reduce the flame to very low to melt it. And you know, you're doing a caramel, you don't want it to be bitter. So it's a good idea. अब हिलाती हूँ मैं. थोड़ा सा golden color आया है. जब थोड़ा सा golden color आ जाता है and the sugar melts and it reaches a proper golden, then remove it from fire. It will, you know, if you leave it on fire, if it becomes over golden and it becomes brown, your caramel is going to turn bitter. We don't want a bitter caramel. बहुत अच्छी तरह पिघल गई है और रंग अभी थोड़ा सा कम है, अभी नहीं हुआ. It's very pale. I want a proper golden color. But then before I add this hot water and butter mixture, is nice and hot. I can't touch this. Before I add this, it has to turn a little shade of brown also. Otherwise caramel flavor नहीं आएगा. बस अब मैं गैस से उतार देती हूँ और आपको कलर दिखाती हूँ. ये देखो, it's a nice golden. Now when you add this water and butter, it's hot. This is also hot. So this is how it should be. Both should be hot, and I'm just stirring it till I get the desired color. Now I get the desired. I'm going to move away because it's going to bubble. See, now just see. You are not supposed to be, and with the other hand, you have to stir. And you have to move away. It's very important to move away and have a big pan, not a small bartan. And your this should be hot caramel, and your liquid should also be hot. Now I can just barely see a few lumps, and I'm going to just remove it by stirring. एक दो गांठें हैं ऐसी, बस वो जरा सा करूंगी तो मिल जाएंगी ना. इट हैज अ लवली. इफ आई हैड डन ऑल दैट कलर ऑन दिस, तो वो जब तक मैं डालती वो ज्यादा हो जाता. जस्ट अ शेड बिफोर आप उतार लो गैस से. एंड नाउ आई एम गोइंग टू ऐड माय कंडेंस्ड मिल्क. ये हो गया. आई कांट सी एनी लम्प्स इन इट. And don't take a plastic spoon, rubber spatula. Now in goes my condensed milk. I have to make it into a sauce. बस बहुत अच्छा रंग आया है सॉस का. सॉल्ट भी आ गया बिकॉज ऑफ द बटर, एंड कैरमल भी आ गया. The sugar. Just give it 2-3 boils, but stirring continuously. Now we can't put it hot. This has to be cooled. The brownie has to be cold before we add it to our brownie. Now let me show you the consistency. I'll just cool it a little more. I'll just cook it a little more. Yeah. I didn't get it, sorry.
The chocolate bar should have the room temperature. After using it, should it be kept in the refrigerator or does it melt as a room?
Chocolate should never be kept in the fridge. Never ever. They get a bloom on top. White aa jata hai upar se. They have to be kept in a cold place, dry place, not in the kitchen. Because if you keep it in the fridge, it doesn't taste, it loses its taste, it loses its texture. So always leave it outside. And अगर बहुत गर्मी है तो थोड़ी देर के लिए फ्रिज में रख दो, बीच में अगर रखना चाहो, पर फिर बाहर ही रखो, ज्यादा उसको बाहर कूल ड्राई प्लेस पे रखो. So you don't store it in the fridge. And the brownie, where do you keep the brownie once it's done? How do you store your brownie? Now this is done. We need to cool this. So I've just cooled my bowls so that it cools faster. See, the bowl is nice and cold so that this cools and I can use it and show it to you. I'm going to put it in the freezer again so that it becomes a little thick. Okay, I was telling you how to do the brownie, how to store the brownie. Isko freezer mein rakh do. The brownie, first of all, when you take it out, my brownie is done. Okay, I'll tell you when I'm doing the brownie. I think let's do the fudge sauce and then I'll tell you, or should I tell you before I forget? Okay, the brownie should be, when you take it out of the oven, let's take it out of the oven and talk about it. See, it's done from the sides. If you see the sides, it has left the sides. It was really hot. And the sides are kind of done. But if I touch the center, then this is coming out clean with just a few specks. These little bit of specks, ये ठीक है, थोड़ा सा है, हल्का सा. ये इतने होने चाहिए. This is just right done. Now, should not take it out of the tin immediately. Leave it in the tin for at least, see, it doesn't rise too much. Brownie बहुत ज़्यादा rise नहीं करती है. Leave it in the tin for 15-20 minutes. Then carefully, अभी मैं कर रही हूँ तो टूट रही है. And if I feel, I don't know how to show it to you, but if you can see, it has a very nice crackling top, crisp top on crisp. Once it cools, you need to take it out on your chopping board and leave it there, and then Leave it there again for about 10-15 minutes. Before cutting, it's a good idea to put it, when it's completely cold, about half an hour later, put it in the fridge for about half an hour to cool completely and to get neat slices. And when you cut, your knife will always get fudgy and dirty every time you cut because it's very fudgy. So keep cleaning your knife and cutting it. And the brownies are then left outside. They are not kept in the fridge. They are left outside. They taste better. But suppose you want to keep them in the fridge, you can keep them in the fridge because it's really hot these days in India. So if you want to, but before you eat them, take them out 2 to 3 hours. Let them get to room temperature before you eat them. Okay. So I'll wait for this brownie to get done. Looking really tempting. Now let me do the fudge icing. Cream instead of, as I told you, don't, temper with the recipes. These are very well tried and tested recipes. After many trials, I've created these recipes for you. Now, if you change recipes, they will not be the same. It's not sabzi that you can add your masalas or you can add your tomato pyaz later. Jo ban gaya, so ban gaya. So please stick to the recipe, and milkmaid is nothing which you can't get easily. Sweetened condensed milk is available all over the world. It stays so well in the fridge. खरीद के रख लो, shelf life, साल भर की shelf life होती है. So please do stick to the recipes. Okay. Now let's do the fudge icing. I'm going to use unsalted butter again. 2.5 tablespoons of unsalted butter. It's a request. Please stick to the recipes. Don't change the recipes apni marzi se. Because the recipes, I've really worked hard on the recipes to give you those perfect results. Amul, I've used Amul unsalted butter. It's easily available. Just melt the butter, 2.5 tablespoons of unsalted butter. Let it just melt. Once it melts, I'm going to add my cocoa powder and make a sauce. A smooth sauce. I'm going to remove it from fire and add icing sugar. Now the icing sugar has to be sifted. उसमें कई बार लम्स होते हैं, तो इसीलिए छान ली है मैंने, जैसे मैदा छाना था उसी तरह से ये मैंने आइसिंग शुगर भी छान ली है. अब ये कोको एंड बटर ऐसे बिल्कुल आपका सॉस की तरह हो गया है. इसके अंदर मैं डाल रही हूँ 3/4 कप ऑफ आइसिंग शुगर. थोड़ा थोड़ा करके डालती हूँ. डाल ही देती हूँ सारा, बिकॉज द रेसिपीज हैव बीन ट्राइड एंड टेस्टेड. अच्छा, उसके बाद आप इसके अंदर डालोगे थोड़ा सा वनीला एसेंस. हाउ टू स्टोर ब्राउनी. ओके, जस्ट लेट मी फिनिश दिस. अब ये देखो आपका बहुत गाढ़ा पेस्ट है. अब इसको पाइप तो नहीं कर सकते हम, पहले इसको अच्छी तरह से मिला लेते हैं हम. I've used Cadbury's cocoa. I've used this Cadbury's cocoa. बस कुछ नहीं लिखा हुआ, Cadbury's cocoa. Okay. Now अब इसके अंदर मैं थोड़ा सा दूध मिलाऊंगी. बहुत थोड़ा सा means थोड़ा सा. This is about a tablespoon. Maybe I'll put just half a tablespoon. ले लेगा थोड़ा सा और देखते जाओ और डालते जाओ. यू वांट दैट सॉसी कंसिस्टेंसी. ये 1 tablespoon ले लेगा. Now cool it slightly and then put it in a bag. How to store the brownies, you had said, but somebody had asked. First of all, cut the brownies when they are absolutely cold. Preferably before cutting, After they turn cold, put them in the fridge for 30 minutes to get neat slices, neat pieces. Secondly, if it's not very hot and not very humid, just for these 1 or 2 months in India, when it's very hot and humid, you can put them in a box like this. डब्बा दिखाना ब्राउनी जिसमें रखा था. You can put them in a box like this, and put them in your fridge. And before serving, take them 2 hours, 3 hours before serving. But if it's a pleasant weather, except for these 2 months, you can leave it outside also. Okay, this is nice and smooth. I have this piping bag with me. I'm going to put it in this. See the consistency? अगर पतला हो जाता है बाय मिस्टेक तो थोड़ी देर रुक जाना, थोड़ी देर फ्रिज में रख देना, ठंडा होके वो गाढ़ा हो जाएगा. और अगर बहुत गाढ़ा लगता है तो थोड़ा सा दूध मिला लेना. So you can always adjust it. अभी तो ये गरम है थोड़ा सा. Preferably, when you want to make all of them salted caramel, it's a good idea. कुछ गाढ़ा हो गया थोड़ा, अभी नहीं हुआ ये, क्योंकि ठंडा ही नहीं हुआ. I can still feel it's warm, but never mind. आपको दिखाना ही है, ये ठंडा होके गाढ़ा होगा. It will get a spreading consistency. तो अगर आपने सारी ब्राउनीज को आपने अगर सॉल्टेड कैरमल बनाना है, तो आप इसको ठंडा करके डब्बे में, ब्राउनी जब ठंडी हो जाती है बिफोर कटिंग, निकाल कर उसको वापस डिब्बे में डाल दो आप ठंडी करके, या डब्बे में ही जब 15-20 मिनट बाद इट्स नो लॉन्गर हॉट, आप अपने टिन में, आई मीन डब्बे नहीं, आई मेंट केक टिन, उसी टिन में ऊपर से डाल दो. बिकॉज इफ आई पुट इट ऑन ईच, व्हाट हैपेंस इज इट गोज टू द बॉटम. सो नाउ let me put it on this. This is very hot. What I'm trying to say is when it's no longer hot and this also thickens, all you can do is just pour on this. ये थोड़ी लेयर बन जाएगी. अभी ये लेयर नहीं बनेगी बिकॉज ये अभी फैलती जा रही है, सेटल नहीं हो रही है. एंड इफ यू वांट, इफ यू लाइक, आप इंडिविजुअल पीसेस पे भी डाल सकते हो, बट दैट गेट्स मेसी. अगर इंडिविजुअल पीसेस पे डालना है आपने, तो फिर आप उसको पाइप कर दो. तो पाइप कैसे करना है मैं आपको बताती हूँ. इंडिविजुअल पीस. नाउ दिस इज वन सेम थिंग विच आई हैड मेड, बट इफ आई फील दिस इज स्टिल हॉट, सो इट्स गोइंग टू स्प्रेड. दिस इज पहले से बनाया हुआ है तो ठंडा है. So you can do your caramel sauce also like this, but if you want a nice thick caramel, salted caramel layer on the top, you need to cool this completely so that it doesn't flow. It becomes a spreading consistency, and you spread it on top. Yes, you can use Nutella. ये थोड़ी सी गाढ़ी हो गई है, फ्रिज में रखी थी, but still it's all right. See this, you can pipe on your icings. And if, let me try this, this is hot. I'm just giving you all options. This is pipe, this is also piping. एक को ब्राउनी देना और जो पड़ी है प्लेट में निकाल के. This is the fudge icing. This hot one is working very well because this cold one has become a little too stiff fridge में रखने से. And your fudge brownies are ready. If you feel You can just sprinkle on this fudge because fudge is very sweet. Salted caramel पे नहीं. तो fudge पे अगर मन करे तो एक आध, just 1 or 2 specks of the sea salt. Just 1 or 2, ज्यादा नहीं, बहुत मीठा नमकीन लगने लग जाता है. एक आध डाल दो, कहीं बाइट में एक आध नमक का मुंह में स्वाद आ जाता है. So there we go. We finished with the class, and this also has just 3 minutes to go. So I think this should also be done. And if you have any questions, just feel free.
मैम हमारे कोलकाता में तो हम लोग घर का ही दही लेते हैं. आप बोलते हैं डब्बे का, तो कौन सा डब्बे का लेना चाहिए?
आप ये मदर डेयरी वगैरह नहीं है आपके कोलकाता में?
हाँ मदर
अमूल है, नेस्ले
अमूल
नहीं, आप अमूल नहीं किया तो अमूल का, नेस्ले का, मदर डेयरी का, सबका दही का डब्बा आता है.
Ma'am, throughout you used Cadbury's cocoa, ma'am, throughout?
Yes, yes.
Ma'am, please do conduct Gujarati and Rajasthani class.
Rajasthani, okay. I was thinking of doing a stuffed gatte, Rajasthani gatte. Maybe next Indian class I'll do that.
Also Gujarati classes.
All right, I'll do that. I'll look into
Ma'am,
it.
do we have,
Thank you
all
so much, ma'am.
baking ingredients at your site, ma'am?
Sorry?
Do we have all baking
Yes,
ingredients?
we have all the cooking ingredients on our site. Yes, we do.
Ma'am, baking also, right?
Sorry, yes, everything.
मैम आप सॉल्टेड कैरेमल जो डालते तो वो क्या जम जाएगा कि वो लिक्विड ही रहेगा जो आपने भी डाला?
नहीं नहीं, जमेगा, ये जमेगा, ये गरम था, जमेगा, ये गाढ़ा हो जाएगा, जम जाएगा.
और आपने जो बोला कि मेरा जो हॉट है उसका
आप डालने से पहले ही उसको पहले आप जमा लेना, फ्रिज में थोड़ी देर रखना, वो ठंडा हो जाएगा. और स्प्रेडिंग कंसिस्टेंसी जैसे कि ये कुकी इसका बैटर था ना, ऐसा सा हो जाएगा, जैसा एग वाला बैटर था, थोड़ा पतला बहता हुआ.
Ma'am, you said not to use Coverture chocolate, but you explain in Hindi. Can you just tell me why we shouldn't use Coverture chocolate, ma'am?
Coverture chocolate is a very delicate chocolate. It needs to be tempered again and again, and it is not really used for baking as such. It is used for making, truffles, icings and all on the cake. Okay. It can't handle the heat so well.
Okay.
Ma'am, I want to share one thing that I have attended your class in 1992.
Okay.
At Asaf Ali Road.
Okay, what time ho gaya?
I know. And one more thing, I think Mr. Mehta, your husband, he was our guest at our place. I think you have the name with the National Laboratories Pharmaceutical.
वो इनके ब्रदर की थी.
Brother की थी, okay. So वो हमारे guest हैं.
It's a small world.
I know.
Achha, okay, now this is also out. See, this side is done. Can you see this? The cheesecake brownie. This is also done. The chocolate chip वाली और ये cheesecake वाली दोनों हो गई है. ये egg वाला बैटर था और ये भी हो गया. इसको भी हम टेस्ट कर लेते हैं स्क्वायर से. ये भी साफ निकल रहा है, हल्का सा चिपक रहा है, उतना तो चिपकता है. ये ठंडा हो जाएगा तो ये बन जाएगी. जब उठाओ तो चारों मिलके उठाना, चारों तरफ से किसी की हेल्प लेकर.
Ma'am, which is the cream cheese to be used, ma'am? Which company?
Delecta is good. Philadelphia is too expensive. Philadelphia becomes too expensive. There's no need. We are not doing a cheesecake. So for this simple topping, Delecta is reasonably priced and it's good.
Delecta.
Can we make cream at
Thank
home?
you.
Ma'am, can you repeat the ratio of the paneer and cream for cream cheese?
75 grams of paneer and 2 tablespoons of cream, but it will depend on how thick or thin your cream is. Just see that when you beat it in the grinder, mix it in the grinder, the consistency is of a spreading consistency.
Okay. Okay. We can use a Amul cheese, right? Amul cream.
Amul cream, yes. Yeah. But why don't you buy Delecta cream cheese? आजकल तो सब चीज ऑनलाइन मिल जाती है.
Then at times it is not, they don't deliver Delecta cream cheese.
Big Basket वगैरह, everyone is giving Delecta cream cheese.
Ma'am, we don't have big basket supply here. The place we stay,
कहाँ रहते हो आप?
Kashipur.
काशीपुर। ठीक है, फिर आप क्रीम से बना लो और पनीर से बना लो, ठीक है?
Yeah.
मैम आप आइसिंग कर रहे थे भी तो आपने बोला हॉट वाला से इजी हो रहा है, फ्रिज वाला
क्या?
जब हमें कौन सा करना है आइसिंग? जो कोन में
देखो,
आप आइसिंग कर रहे
नहीं
थे।
बहुत नहीं, फ्रिज में नहीं रखना वो।
हाँ।
मतलब बहुत गर्मी थी तो मैंने सोचा थोड़ी देर फ्रिज में रख देती हूँ, तो फ्रिज में नहीं रखना। फ्रिज में रखते हो तो वो जम जाता है, बस थोड़ी देर छोड़ दो ताकि वो रूम टेम्परेचर पे आ जाए। फ्रिज में रखने की जरूरत नहीं है।
थैंक यू मैम।
आप थोड़ा सा काट के देख लेना ना करके, अगर लगेगा आपको बहुत पतला है, बह रहा है, तो थोड़ी देर 5 मिनट रख देना फ्रिज में, और अगर लगेगा कि आपको ज्यादा है तो बाहर रख देना थोड़ा।
मैम मैंने बेक
डिपेंड
सेव पूरी
करता है
बनाई थी,
टेम्परेचर पे।
बहुत अच्छी बनी।
क्या चीज बनाई?
बेक सेव पूरी विद टैमरिंड हमस।
अच्छा, आपने फोटो डाली थी, शायद भेजी थी।
हाँ डाली थी
तो
मैंने।
हाँ जी, बहुत अच्छी बनी थी, देखा था मैंने। नहीं, रेसिपीज सारी ट्राइड एंड टेस्टेड होती है, इसीलिए मैं कहती हूँ आपको रेसिपीज को अपना ज्यादा मत करो चेंज, नहीं तो ना प्रॉब्लम हो जाती है कई बार। चलिए ठीक है, एनीथिंग एल्स एनीबडी वांट्स टू नो? सो वी लुक फॉरवर्ड टू हैविंग यू फॉर द कंटेम्परेरी इंडियन क्लास।
थैंक यू
so much
मैम।
for joining.
थैंक यू
Thank
मैम।
you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.